Hello, my name is Robbie. On here, I'm Templar Knight. Every person who believes in God but doesn't attend church has a story why. But it's said that whenever two or more gather in God's name, that He is there. So this is church. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. Tonight, we continue the restoration series. Been working on these cars for over 2 months now. And they're getting closer to be completed. And it is a bittersweet victory for me. I have loved this series so much. The relation between building a car and building faith just means the world to me. I love making the connection. I love all of the comparisons that can be made. And in all honesty, when these cars are done, I don't know if we're going to stop driving. I might not stop this series. This might become my new theme because I love these cars so much. But this week, we're going to put the gauges in our vehicles. We got to have our speedometers, our whole dashboard, our console. We need to have the gauges in. Now, the purpose of these gauges in our vehicle basically is just to relay information. You've got your tachometer, tells you how fast your engine's spinning, tells you what the RPMs are. Back in the day, we used to have stick shifts. It mattered a lot more then because you needed to know when you needed to switch gears. You've got your speedometer, tells you how fast you're going. Very vital when you're driving through places so that you can blend with traffic, so you can fit in and not be going too fast or too slow. You got your gas gauge, lets you know how your fuel's doing, when you're going to need to stop to get more, especially if you're on a road trip. Next gas not for 200 miles. I can't make it that far, I better stop and get some gas. And then you've got all the little gauges that most people don't really look at. You've got your temp gauge, tells you how hot or cold your engine is. Normally it sits right in the middle and you get to ignore it because it only matters when it's bad. You've got your battery gauge, tells you how the charge is doing on your battery. And a handful of others. But these gauges, their purpose is to relay the current status of your car to you. It's warning signs, essentially. I always like to joke with Assassin Reborn because he's a mechanic, and I always tell him, hey man, I've got a car problem. Or I was able to fix my car the other day. There was this really weird sound coming from under my floorboards, and I turned up the radio and the sound went away, so I'm all better now. It's a dumb joke, I know, but I like it. Those gauges are there to convey information, because that sound, turning up the radio so I can't hear it anymore, did not fix the problem. That sound was telling me there is a problem. That's what our gauges do. How many of you have ever had your check engine light pop on? You're like, post-it note. Can't see it, it doesn't matter anymore. Just covered it up. Or my personal favorite, on my van, I have these tire gauges that tell me when my tires are going flat. And those are very beneficial. I've been driving that van down the highway and I had a blowout once. And it was scary. And I kept the van upright. But there was no warning to it. Well, now whenever I get that tire low gauge, whenever that little light comes on, I check. Because that's my van's way of telling me, hey, there's a problem here. There's not enough air in your tire. Look into it. And by checking the air, checking the tire pressure, that prevents me from being in a situation where you have that blowout and all of a sudden you're doing 75 down the highway and the rear end of your car wants to outrun the front. The gauges are there to prevent us from getting in problems. Let's take this out of the car. Let's take this to our physical health. Our body tells us, it communicates with us when something's wrong. Most of us know it as pain. If I were to accidentally slam my hand in the door, it's gonna hurt. And my body is going to relay that pain to say, hey, don't do that again. It's going to convey a message of discomfort to me to say, hey, don't do that. That hurts. You could damage yourself that way. Our bodies like to talk to us. And same thing with, like, there's a lot of animals out there. Take a black widow spider, for instance. Everyone knows what they look like, and we know to leave them alone because their bite releases a neurotoxin. And what it does is it releases that small amount of venom, says, hey, don't mess with me, I can cause pain in you. And if you get bit, you'll get a nice bite mark, a big old red welt, and then it will spread, and it will hurt. Your muscles will cramp up. It will send so much pain into your body, because that's the spider's way of saying, don't mess with me. This is what I can do to your body. So your body gets that bite and it says, ow, don't mess with that thing. It hurts. Now granted, most black widows are very passive spiders. They're not aggressive. You almost have to try to make them bite. But, sorry, I'm getting off tax. Our body will respond a specific way to tell us, to warn us, to communicate information. I threw out my back a while ago, and my back said, hey, stupid, that hurt, don't do that. And while my muscles and my joints needed time to heal, it constantly conveyed a signal of pain to me so that I would learn. I would say, ooh, this is discomforting. I don't like this. I shouldn't do that again. That's how our body conveys the message to us. And we also got our minds, our mental health. It conveys things a little differently. When our minds are in pain, I think we all know. We can pick up on the warning signs. A lot of us, we can get overwhelmed and we'll just cry. Or we'll shut down. We'll just start shaking. Or we'll get mad and we'll get angry and we'll lash out. And that's our mind saying, hey, something is wrong. Pick up on these signals. And so often we don't. We don't even realize it. I'll admit, I'm in that boat too. Work Robbie, he's got this little gauge that's monitoring the temperature, and sometimes he gets a little hot-tempered. And I'll be driving and I'll have conversations, relay conversations, interactions that didn't happen, but things I wanted to say. Things I'm gonna say if this pops up. Ooh, if I ever get this opportunity, this is what's gonna happen. And I'll get so amped up and angry at nothing. Driving down the street, just thinking about shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And I've learned to catch myself. And I'll literally be sitting there and I'll say, Robbie, why are you so mad right now? What is wrong, buddy? I'll talk to myself aloud in the middle of the van. Probably another sign of mental health being a little off. But I'm learning to read the gauges to monitor my mental health. For me, crying isn't a huge sign of anything wrong with my mental health because, as you all have learned, I am very easy to become overwhelmed with emotion and cry. The right song can do it. The right words from someone I know or from a stranger. It's not hard to make me cry. That does not tell me I'm in poor mental health. But I've learned that my silence is. When I have anger inside, that is. Those are my gauges going off saying, Robbie, there's something wrong in your head, man. Calm down. And then we bring this to our vehicles. Our spiritual health. What do our gauges tell us? Do we even know how to read them? I know for a long time, I drove my faith with the check engine light on. I didn't want to look at it. I said, I'll deal with it. I drove my faith when the light said, change oil soon. I drove my faith when I needed to stop and check on it and see what was wrong. But faith's a hard one. Where do we get gauges for faith? What are some things that will tell us that, hey, your faith's hurting, bud? I know my biggest one is when I struggle to pray. Most days I will sit down, I give myself a half hour, sometimes longer, just to sit down and talk to God. And some days I struggle with it. Some days I can't even pray for 5 minutes. And then I sit there and I get frustrated. I'm like, Robbie, why can't you pray today? So you know what I do? I pray about it. I sit there and I ask God, I'm like, what is going on with me right now, Lord? Can you show me what's wrong? Light up one of these gauges for me. Do I need to check my engine? Is there something going on with my drivetrain? Maybe my wheel's going flat. Maybe I got some dents in the door panel. God, tell me what's wrong with my faith. What am I struggling with right now? And most of the times, He will. God has never failed to communicate to me when I'm looking for His signs. When I'm asking for communication, asking for help, He's never let me down. Sometimes I miss it, or I don't want to see it, because what He's telling me isn't what I want to hear. But when my faith is struggling, I gotta look at the gauges. I gotta say, hey, there's something wrong here. What's going on? Something isn't right. Most of the time, I'm just sitting back on cruise control. Just got her locked in, 75 down the highway, just cruising along. But sometimes I'm not. I would love to say I'm that perfect Christian who's got it all figured out. But I'm not. I am that Christian who has figured out that I need Jesus to forgive me. I am that Christian who has figured out that I need the Lord to guide me. I'm that Christian who's figured out that God is going to send things my way that I'm not capable of dealing with. But everything He is capable of dealing with. I'm that Christian. I'm that Christian who sometimes need to look at the tachometer and say, hey, I'm in the wrong gear. I need to downshift, or I need to slow the vehicle down a little bit. I'm pushing her too hard. I'm that Christian who looks down and says, oh, wait, buddy, you're doing 60 in the highway. You need to go faster, bud. That's why everyone's passing you. I'm sorry, I'm making a lot of car comparisons tonight, and I really hope that they're coming across as to what I'm actually talking about in my life. All the things with faith, with our mental health, with our physical bodies, all these signals, all this information that is trying to be conveyed to us. It's all there if we're looking for it. Sorry, I'm reading through my notes and I'm looking at the Bible verse I set aside for tonight. Because I try my best to throw a Bible verse in every week because, we call this a Bible study. Should probably have some Bible in it. I don't know if it fits. I don't know where I was going with this one. Anyway, tonight's verse is Romans 12, verse 2. And it says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve of what God's will is. His will is good, it's pleasing, and it's perfect." So we're supposed to follow where God's guiding us. When the check engine comes on, look at it. When the tire gauge says you're low, look at it. Acknowledge the information that's being sent to you. Deal with it. I think one of the scariest signs I ever had to work with, I'm not going to name any names, but there was a guy I was interacting with for a while, and he struggled. He was a good, God-fearing man, lived passionately for his Lord. But for some reason, despite how nice of a guy he was horrible to his wife. And seeing the way he treated her, it upset me. I have a different view on marriage. You never yell at your wife. You never speak in anger to her. God forbid, one night he struck her. And I could not tolerate that. And I remember having to sit him down and just saying, "Dude, what is going on? What is happening in your heart? What's going on in your mind? What is going on with your faith that you think it's okay to treat her like that?" And he and I started to talk more about the other problems, other things that was bugging him, things going on, where his stress and his anger came from. And I don't know why he ever thought it was okay to release that stress and anger on her like that. But we were able to look at the gauges, figure out what was wrong. What was wrong in his head? What was wrong in his heart? What was wrong in his faith? And we were able to address those problems. And he learned how to properly treat his wife. The gauges were sending out the warning signals. Now, the one thing you'll notice, I did not attempt to fix his relationship with his wife. That was not my goal. My goal was to fix the damage inside of him so that he could fix his marriage. Because so often we just want to treat the symptoms. We don't want to treat the cause. The abuse in his marriage was a symptom caused by the damage in his heart, caused by the damage in his faith. And once we treated that, once the cause was gone, everything found its rightful place. So that's what these gauges are for. To put up the signs, to send out the giant red flag saying, "Hey, there's a problem. It needs to be addressed. We need to fix this." Now, I'm hoping, betting, praying that none of us have such severe problems. If you do, I'd be more than willing to talk about it. No judgment. I would love to help you fix your problems. I would love to sit down and talk through whatever's going on and figure out a solution. Not just marriage stuff, mental health stuff. If you are struggling with things, my private messages are always open. Feel free to contact me whenever. Right now I've been struggling with a coworker who is always sick. And she's always sick because she's always stressed. And she's always stressed because she's always sick. And she's stuck in this vicious cycle, and she doesn't know how to get better. And she doesn't know how to stop worrying. And so she just puts a post-it note over the gauges saying, check engine. Just says, nope, I don't see it. I'm just going to ride it out. And it breaks me to know that I can't help her. Because the first step to getting help is acknowledging that you need help. She knows. I told her time and time again, if you need help, ask. Just let me know. She still got this. Notes over the gauges. Sharpie marker colored over this. Just trying to ride it out. If you need help, acknowledge it. You know, it's like that intro to Alcoholics Anonymous. You have to admit you have a problem. That's what these gauges are for. Saying, here's your problem. Are you going to acknowledge it?